Hey everyone, so I'm back again with the new year with the first video. So let no one ever say I don't have Riz. My Riz was so good, Rona paid me a visit, and we were very intimate for over a week probably. I really wasn't keeping track of how long I was sick. I'm still kind of sick, so if I sound sick, that's why I sound that way. My Rona Riz. I've come up with this cool idea for new content called Bad Takes in Gaming. I can't afford, sound work and all that. So just imagine that sounded really epic. Okay. Concept is very simple. I take a bad take in gaming. Probably I'll do these very infrequently. And just roast it. So here we got a meme I came across while I was sick. And at that point in time, I could barely talk. So wasn't a really good idea for me to do this because I would have sounded absolutely horrible. Are gamers too entitled? Now, let me address this idea on the face of it. No. See, you can argue someone's entitled, but at the end of the day, who's more entitled in an equation? The person who says, hey, I want X in exchange for my $70, or the person who says, hey, you will give me $70 no matter what unfinished, unpolished dog shit I put before you. I will not give you good story. I will not give you good mechanics. I will not even have the game finished some of the time. Who's more entitled? No, gamers aren't entitled. The industry is ran by a bunch of entitled twats. And let's move on to the second point here. The right here, down here. The Last of Us 2 ruined my life, and killed my family. Changing MJ face in the new Spider-Man game was worse than the Holocaust. Final Fantasy needs to go back to turn-based combat. Okay. Setting aside the hyperbole of the first two, if this is what someone wants, you could argue, hey, your requirements or your demands are just outrageous. And by the end of the day, they don't have to part with their $70. If you want $70, you will give the man the turn-based Final Fantasy. You will give the man a face of MJ not beaten with an ugly stick. I mean, he shouldn't be passing money for The Last of Us. That franchise objectively sucks. Just look, I'm sorry, guys. That's my opinion. And here's the thing: I found it hilarious when, because a lot of the fans, the toxic ones, let's just put it that way, kept saying like, "No, you guys just don't get it. The ending of The Last was deep. It wasn't stupid and contrived and poorly implemented and unrealistic." And then that same ending happened to Joel in the sequel, and then all of a sudden, now that it's happened to a character that they care about, suddenly it's bad. It's bad writing. Now that's called comeuppance, and it's hilarious. And someone's probably going to need to do a bad take in gaming and add that, my take right there, as a bad take. Because some people are going to strongly disagree with that. But back in my day, 90s and early 2000s, when a bad game came out and nobody really cared. This game stinks. Whatever, let's go play baseball. Are you fucking kidding me? All right, see, I'm old as fuck. I was born in 89. I was there when the ancient law was written. I was there. Not actively a lot of times, but I was there. Games back then cost $50. Do you know how much $50 was worth back then? See, $50 doesn't sound like a lot of money nowadays, but let me put it this way. You could live very comfortably on $50 worth of groceries back then. My family of five, we could go to the grocery store, Save-A-Lot. So if you guys don't know, that's a franchise store in America that used to sell really affordable groceries. And $200 would feed my family of five for the good part of the month, if not the whole month. And then my dad would be bitching about us buying name brand. Okay, go to the store nowadays and show me a car that's $200. Say nothing like $50. I'm pretty sure $50 back then. We live in we're not country, but we're decently rural. It's developed, but it's kind of like that weird hodgepodge where you can't really say we're urban, but you can't say we're really country. So like halfway between rural and urban. If that makes any sense. So prices aren't super expensive here, which is really nice. And if you have problem with the amount of money you need to spend to live, move somewhere cheaper. It's not that easy, but with work from home, it's going to become way easier. Point being, $50 bought for enough food for 1/5. Let's see, 50, 50, 50. All right, 1/4 of my family's basically monthly food budget, minus the food you have to top up on. If a game sucked back in the 90s and 2000s, we tore that game a new asshole. The only difference is nowadays, back then, rather, you didn't have all these forums and the media hyper focusing on this stuff. No, if a game sucked back then, everyone would just shit on it. Like, you'd have to find some gaming forums. There would be no peace. Back then, and here's the funny part, right? Not most games today, like 95% of games released today, would be considered dog shit games by the 90s standards. Because we did not have the ability to update games back then. So if a game came out with a bug, a significant quest bug, that affected more than like 5% of the people, you would know damn well the publisher would be apologizing. And like, there's one game that literally offered, because the game itself had a critical bug, to replace the CDs with updated CDs that would not have the bug. Yeah, so the crap that flies nowadays for game design, no, would never fly back. And here's the worst part, right? So, you know how today we like to play games that are like Resident Evil, that are like FIFA or like Monster Hunter? Yeah, no, that would get you downvoted back in the day. That would be a mark against you. And don't get me wrong, I never really agreed with this ideal, because back then, you got a new Resident Evil game maybe once every 2-3 years. So I wanted some Resident Evil to play in between my Resident Evil when I finally got into the franchise. So Cold Fear, it's like, oh, it's a Resident Evil clone. Literally, being called a clone of the game was a demarcation back in the day. Didn't bother me none, because I wanted more Resident Evil. So like, oh hey, Cold Fear is like Resident Evil. I gotta play this, because I'm not gonna get another Resident Evil game until next year. And Resident Evil's like what, 5 to 20, 30 hours max, depending on how much you can get out of it. More leaning toward the later or latter. Yeah. So whoever made this was not a 90s kid, or they were some spoiled, rich, narcissistic family, had money, didn't really care if a game sucked, because everyone else would be roasting games for half the crap. Like, that's even before, like, oh, hey, Mary Jane's face. Like, no. You had Mary Jane's face look ugly in a game? Nah. People would not tolerate that. And here's the thing. Back then, if you pissed us off, we just didn't buy your game. And worse than that, when your next game came out, the word was like, oh, hey, these are the guys who made Mary Jane's face ugly in Spider-Man 2. These are the guys who made The Last of Us 2. You had to then re-earn your industry cred. And some studios pulled it off. Now, there was forgiveness. There's always going to be forgiveness. Like, okay, this was just a lame game. They were trying something new. Because back then, developers actually did try new stuff. It was a smaller title. We can let this slide. It wasn't the mainline franchise we love this studio for. Back then, if you kept saying, like, hey, we're going to make Final Fantasy, but we're not going to give you turn-based. I'm like, oh, we won't buy your Final Fantasy game then. Yeah, no. You want to talk about entitled? Old school gamers were straight gangster. The word was no, and we would put you out of business if you didn't want to comply. Nowadays, people are like, well, I don't like Call of Duty. No offense to any of my friends and anyone who plays Call of Duty. I'm just picking on Call of Duty. I don't like Call of Duty. I'm like, oh, okay, you're gonna be buying Call of Duty? Oh, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that like there probably was some games back in the day that would get away with that crap, but not a lot. Not a lot. It's funny they're comparing modern gaming, which 96% of the companies today would go out of business in old school gamers. It's really funny watching new gamers, the younger gamers, pick up some of the remakes like the System Shock remake, which is I've heard really. I bought it. I just haven't got around to playing it. The legendary backlog. And you see the reviews, and one person's like, the old gamers are right. Games were better back in the day. Aside from graphics, they kind of were. Don't get me wrong, I love that controls have gotten smoothed out over the days. I love the fidelity has increased. But games are meant to be played, and the play part kind of has gotten a lot weaker. And then on top of that, you have politics being injected into crap. And that just sucks. So are gamers entitled? No. You're not entitled to $70. Deal with it. You want, look, you can say, dude, man, Final Fantasy doesn't do turn-based anymore. And that guy could be like, fine. I'll just give my money to Persona. I give my money to Shin Megami Tensei. I'll give my money to... Oh, man, there's been a couple really good turn-based Final Fantasy-like games lately. Crap, one of them I think just won Game of the Year, too. Sea of Memories. I think that one's turn-based. You have all these games. I'll give him money to Dragon Quest. You have all these games that are going to offer him what he wants or her what she wants. So they don't have to give Final Fantasy. And if there's not, you don't have to buy a game. It's not like I have to get this Final Fantasy VII game, or I will literally die. That's not how that works. You want the $70 or $60 or $50 or $40 or whatever you're charging for it, you had better give the player what they want. Just the entitlement of the industry and the people who defend it thinking that they are owed consumer money is insane. It is a cancerous rot that goes way beyond gaming. And if we're going to be honest, it's really, really messing up our civilization. Now, I'm not talking about games. Screw gaming. Just this mentality in other industries where they feel entitled to your money without having to deliver a quality product, without right to repair and right of ownership, is a significant issue that in the next decade or so we're probably going to have to tackle collectively and sit down as adults. Not sure, basically people who are saying, "Oh, you're entitled for expecting, stuff in exchange for money." They're not gonna be allowed at the table. Those are children. They can go sit at the kiddie table while the adults are gonna have to sit down and work out, how we're gonna address these issues going forward. Because right now we're at the tail end of an abundance of wealth. We have a banking crisis kicking off. We have commercial real estate crisis kicking off. We have the student loan crisis kicking off. China is beyond economically screwed with a lot more issues than America. Europe, if Europe thinks it's isolated from the issues that are going to just basically rip America a new one, they're insane. And a lot of that comes from just being entitled and just ignoring blatant problems. Gaming's being shit ain't gonna bring down civilization. Let's be real. It's a game. I believe you should take gaming seriously, but I believe there's a limit, right? Games are not gonna. Well, I don't want to say they're not gonna change the world, because when they have a huge impact on cultural discussion, that's an impact. But now we're getting into philosophy, and let's get this back on track. You know me, I like to rant. This crap, bad take. Let me know what you think in the comments. Peace out.